Hi and welcome to the second video of my Learn How to Knit for Beginners series. In the last video we were talking about yarn, knitting needles, how to combine those, what gauges, tension and all of those things that you need to know before knitting. So in this video I'm going to show you how to actually cast on your knitting needles. I will show you two ways of doing it, the two most common ways, at least that I know of, when you are a beginner, because when you advance in your knitting you usually use multiple ways of casting on. Some are more stylish for the projects that you are making, so in this video we will focus on cast-ons. And this time you won't have to see my face as much because we are going to look down on the table. So let's dive into it. So as I told you before, there are mainly two kinds of cast-ons that you use when you're knitting. And these two are good for beginners, and it doesn't really contribute to a more stylish look, but it's very practical to use these two kinds of cast-ons. So the first one is called the long tail cast-on, and as you can hear, it's because it makes this kind of long tail and you need to use a long tail. So you take one of your knitting needles and then you are going to make a slip knot. And a slip knot is essentially a knot that is not a real knot, but you can just pull it and it disappears. So I think many of you recognize this kind of knot. So you twist your yarn like this. You grab a piece of yarn like that and pull, and then you have your slip knot. I can show you that again. You cross the yarn, and you can even use your knitting needle for this, and you collect the yarn like that, and then you pull, and then you have your slip knot, and you put this on your knitting needle. And what you want to do is to have your, or it doesn't really matter, but I think it's better to have the tail that is created from the slip knot on the bottom here, and the yarn that is connected to your skein on the top. So what you want to do now is that you want to use your pointing finger and your thumb and put them like this under the yarn and grab the yarn like that. So you put your pointing finger, thumb like that, and then you just grab the yarn like that. And you want to have it quite tight, or not tight, but you want to have it snug, so it's like that. So you don't want to hold it over here, but you want to be quite close to the needle. And don't be frustrated now if you can't do it right away, because it takes practice and it's very unfamiliar for most of you, I can imagine. So take your time, try it, watch me do it, and then you can go back in the video and watch me do it again until you get it right. So now you want to make like this V shape of the yarn, and you want to have like a gun, if I may have that reference, or you want to have like a I don't know what it's called, but also like a V shape with your fingers, and you want to grab it like that. And what you want to do now is that you take your knitting needle and make sure the slip knot stays on the knitting needle, so you can hold it with your pointing finger. You take your knitting needle and insert it here. So you come from under and through there, the loop at your thumb. You collect the yarn, or you grab the yarn from the pointing finger, pull it through, let go with your thumb, and voila, you have your first stitch on your, or second, or it depends on how you count, on your knitting needle. So you want to do that multiple times and get a few stitches on here. So you take your yarn, or you go under the thumb, grab the yarn from the pointing finger, and then you let go of your thumb, or the yarn of your thumb. So you want to go up here, grab the yarn, and voila. So you want to do these little stitches and put them on your knitting needle like that. So make a few. You can practice, and as you can see, I make these rather fast because I am used to doing this. This is actually my preferred method of doing cast-ons. So this is what it looks like. On this side, which is the right side, you can see these sort of waves. They go like this. And on the wrong side of your work, you got these bumps back here. So these are called purls, and these are called knits. And I will go through that in the next video when we actually start to knit. So this is the first method that you can use to cast on and get started with your knitting project. So the second method that you can use is the single cast on, and it's actually much easier, but I will bring up the pros and cons in the at the end of this cast on. So what you want to do now is that you don't need this long tail, but you can have just a small tail like that. You make your regular slip knot like this, pull through, add to your knitting needle, and you pull like that. So this actually requires only your thumb. So you take your yarn like that, and you put your thumb like this, and you just insert like you do with the long tail cast on, and you just let go, and then you have your stitch. Look, how easy isn't that? You just put your thumb like this, insert your needle, and let go. And then it creates a loop that it puts on your knitting needle. And as you can see, it makes also these bumps, or not really bumps on this one, but it makes these waves on the front as in the long tail cast on. So the pros with this cast on is that you can do it very quick, and it's very simple to use, and it's very good for beginners. But the cons are the fact that it makes this sort of, or you can see it now, but it makes these giant holes sort of in your knitted fabric, and I can insert an image or show you in the video right now. So it's kind of annoying. It doesn't really make it very beautiful either. So I would totally recommend that you use the long tail cast on. It's much more neat to look at, and it's worth the extra time that it takes to cast on your stitches. And usually you don't just cast on, how many are these, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches, but rather you are casting on maybe 200 stitches. And as you saw before, this makes a ton of space between the stitches when you are casting on quite a few of them. So it's making this very stretchy fabric at the edge where you are casting on. So you don't really want that in your project unless you are aiming at having a very stretchy or very loose fit at the edge of your work. So I would recommend the long tail cast on and not this one, which is the single cast on. And the common problem that you usually bump into very often if you are a very tight knitter, and especially in the beginning when you are knitting, because you tend to hold the yarn and the knitting needles very tightly. And that's not very weird because you've never done this before, and so you tend to stretch the yarn a bit and pull it and hold your knitting needles very tightly. And so when you're going to knit after this, which I will show you in the next video, you will probably have some problems or difficulties rather to knit because it's so tightly wrapped around your needles when you cast it on. So a way to fix this, or a way to avoid this, is to use the second needle as well when you are casting on. So what you want to do is actually the exact same thing. So you want to make your regular slip knot, and I can illustrate that with the 2 of these. So you just pull the yarn through the loop like that and put on your needles like this. So there you go. And then you just do your regular cast on. So whether that be the long tail cast on or the single cast on. So you just do it like this, and don't be afraid of like the bigness of the cast on, because this looks rather big, as you can see. But instead, it's a good thing, because when you pull this out later on and start knitting, it's much looser and much easier to get into these loops than if you would not use the second needle when you are casting on. So that's a trick from me to you when you are going to knit after this. So I hope that you mentioned to cast on your knitting needles, and that you didn't have too much problem with it. Remember, you can always go back and watch again if you didn't make it the first time, or if it was kind of unclear, or if it looks weird. So just go back in the video and watch again until you get it right. So now that you have learned how to cast on to your knitting needles, you will now move on to the knitting itself, which I will show you in the next video. But before we end this video, I want to bring up the fact that many of you are not subscribing to my channel, obviously, because I get much more views than I get subscribers. So go subscribe, guys, because I hope you like my content, and give it a thumb up if you like it, because it means a lot to me, as I have been saying before, because it motivates me to make more of these videos, to keep going and upload more videos to my series, and maybe start a new series for people who are not beginners, but they are further in the process. So make sure to subscribe, like, and comment if you have something to say. So with that said, I want to thank you for following me in this video, and I see you next time when we are going to become knitters. We're going to knit. So I hope to see you there, and have a nice day. Bye.